Thank you very much. Welcome yet to another episode of Global Matters, where we are going to dive straight into the topic of our discussion tonight. We're talking about the so-called bilateral agreement between the Gambia, Spain, and Saudi Arabia, where we ship migrant workers from the Gambia to work in Saudi Arabia and Spain in their informal sector. And then we are also going to talk about the return of fighters from the Sahel region. You know, that area or that region is volatile. As we know, the ramifications are huge, and there are no other better panelists to talk about these topics tonight than my esteemed panelists, Ambassador Essa Bokar Sey and veteran journalist and former information minister, Demba Ali Jawo. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm beginning with Ambassador Essa Bokar Sey. What is your take as of now about what the feedback we are hearing from Gambian youths who have so far succeeded in going to Saudi Arabia and Spain about working in the informal sector? Many a time, some of these young people are desperate to leave the Gambia in search of greener pasture. But sometimes when they go to these countries, their dreams are actually not realized. In fact, they have frustrations, that mounting frustration to an extent that they even want to come back because that's not what they ultimately want to achieve at the end of the day. What is your take?
Well, my take is that the challenge is a homegrown one, for that matter, before we even go to what they're experiencing in Saudi Arabia. Because if you go by the statistics, when the government invited people to submit applications with the possibility of working abroad, we all had the number instantly within few hours rose to 10,000 plus. So which shows the government back home that, well, if anybody is saying there is no unemployment in the Gambia or the unemployment has been reduced, I don't know where they are deriving their statistics and data from, because it's worrisome to realize that in a country there are about 10,000 able-bodied workers who would not hesitate to submit their applications regardless of what kind of work they are going to do abroad. Some people who submitted, I'm pretty sure that they have degrees from the UTG or other places. Okay, so that in itself is a wake-up call for any system to try hard. I mean, you see, one thing that I find disturbing from either the Gambia government today or yesterday is that people are always defensive. When actually there are things that you shouldn't be defensive. You should invite, because there are solutions. Nobody is saying that the government alone should employ all these people, because even in the United States of America, people who get jobs from the private sector are far more than those that the Central American government employs. But the incentives also will come from the government to the private sector. I always say that a country with two institutions that are independent and powerful is a country immune from dictatorship. These two are the private sector and an impartial media highway or a media, industry. Like the US president once said, one of the US presidents said it before, he said he would rather live in a country without a government than a country without journalists. Because those are the people who announce and amplify, sensitize, educate. If anybody doesn't know the meaning of journalism, you should come to Gambia and then revisit the days that people were, standing up against what we call tyranny, because everybody saw what journalists did. So what the government should do is invite a forum where the private sector, I keep saying this, the so-called corporate world in the Gambia is one of the most useless corporate worlds in the world, to be honest with you. Who do they employ? Now, some of them will come on the television and tell you that Gambian youths don't want to work, okay? But now the Gambian youths have denied that. Why did they submit their passports? because they don't have any work to do at home. Some people will tell you the welding is here, mechanic is here. They start listing what other common countries are doing. But to become a successful tailor in the Gambia, I wish you met those who are known household names in the Gambia and tell them what they have suffered as far as getting government contracts, as far as getting loans from the bank. They are not usually patronized, So that's another thing. It's easy to sit and blame people and tell them you can repair tires, but what about if there are second-hand tires being pumped into the Gambia by foreigners, for example, Nigerian businessmen and all that who came to Gambia? Some of them have invaded the market in Basse and all that, every corner. They'll tell you, oh, the foreigners are here. They are ready to do the dirty job. The Gambians are not doing it. But some of those foreigners also have backing inside the Gambia, because the people backing them know that the Gambian would not agree to certain mixed maxes of following through to go and get it. So it is a homegrown issue. Now let's talk about when they are signed in to go abroad.
Okay.
How many things have we had? Other people are saying that there were private individuals involved in recruiting people, filling forms for them. Some people are saying payments were made, and a lot of things are being said. So there was a time, in fact, that the Spanish government issued a statement. I remember that on the media, right? When they were saying what they agreed with the Gambia government does not include some people in the private sector recruiting people and all that. They came out. We all know that. So what do you think the foreign governments that are involved in this, what they hear from the media? That's why I began with the media. Everybody will stand up in the Gambia today and tell you, oh yes, this social media, this and that. But those are the very people who were using the social media and championing it, clapping for it, because they needed the social media. They needed veteran journalists like Demba Ali Jawo. They needed veteran journalists like Ndeye Sose and yourself and other people to promote their agenda at a time there was no possibility for them to access GRTS. So how can you come today and tell, now look, the people who are suffering in Saudi today, who do they contact? Isn't it the media? So what we need to do is to put in place these people. We have seen a video where an employer is asking the young lady to give her passport. The passport should not be given to the employer. Any Gambian who steps on the Saudi soil, your passport, if it should be retrieved, should be in the drawers of the embassy then. There is nowhere in the world that you can tell somebody, hand over your phone to me. What you tell them is working hours. You are not allowed to use the phone. But these people, some of them, we are told that they wake up at 5 and then go to bed until around 1 a.m. When will that person sleep?
Okay.
Yeah.
Ambassador, I'm sure we will come back to you because you have really, the discussions are really going to be animated, no doubt about it. So, DA, what is your take with regard to what Ambassador said? I've made my little findings. The agreement usually for these Middle Eastern countries, when you travel to them, especially for Gambian migrants, there's it's code name as kafala system. This was a concept that was that originated from a Ugandan activist. The kafala system actually is something that the company A, let's say in Qatar or UAE or in Saudi Arabia, will have these workers. Once they come, they are under them. They seize their documents and they make sure that those employees from Gambia or any other African country sign an agreement with them. Once they take their documents, so those employees are really under them. They cannot, for instance, travel. They cannot even go anywhere. So they are under them. They give them housing, and they ask them to report to work. So this is the arrangement. Just to comment on what Ambassador C was talking about. It's called the kafala system in the Middle East. So now, DA, what is your take regarding the expectation of these Gambian employees who are desperate to make ends meet to work and earn their decent pay. Now, for them to come under such an arrangement, I don't know whether that's the agreement that these Gambian employees from the going to Spain or maybe going to Saudi Arabia, that's what they actually agree on, because it varies. What I'm talking about is generally the system. Those who are listening to this program can correct me if I'm wrong, but usually that's the arrangement they usually do. Before this program, a few weeks back, I made some findings about it. So I don't know what DA you have to say regarding this issue.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim. I think we are dealing with two separate issues. That is the Spanish one as well as the Saudi one. So far, I think these are the only two countries which have been involved that the Gambia government has signed, this kind of labor agreement with it. I know, the different parties maybe have their different interests as far as this issue is concerned. To begin with the Saudi issue, we all know what has been happening to Gambians who've been, Gambian ladies who've been going to work in the Middle East. They've been trafficked, they've been used by agents and all kinds of things. So let us hope and pray that probably this one, because the government is directly involved, the two governments are directly involved, probably it will be more, humane than what used to happen in the past when, people were trafficked by, agents, private agents, who were just after their own personal interests. And they will, they were subjected to so much, inhumanity treatment and all those things, in the Middle East. But let's hope this time round, even though it's not a very ideal situation, because definitely we all know, how Africans, especially African domestic servants, are treated in the Middle East. Probably this one is going to be a bit much more better than what used to happen in the past. In the case of the Spanish one, we all have seen what has happened. They were asking for about, I think, initially about 50 people, and over 10,000 people actually applied to go to Spain. We all know what the objective of those youths were. In the first place, we all know that in Spain, they were looking for people who would help them in the farms. They have got their farms in there, picking of, fruit and all those things, doing some farming work. And we know that a big chunk of those those youths who actually applied to go to Spain had no idea what farm work is. They were from the urban areas like Banjul, Serekunda. People have never been to the farm whatsoever. Their objective in this particular case, because they were desperate in the Gambia, they just wanted to go. We've seen people going in these rickety boats, risking their lives in the Mediterranean. But this time round, maybe they are assured that they will be flown directly to Spain if they succeed. That is why they were eager to, just to get in there. They didn't care what kind of work they were going to do there. I'm quite positive that a majority of those people, when they go to Spain, probably their main objective would be to see how best they can be able to disappear and get into the crowd, rather than continuing, in their work. I don't know how the Spanish authorities are going to control these people when they get them there, but it's not going to be easy, because I know their objective and what the Spanish government want are completely different. So, this is the situation. The two scenarios are not the ideal situation, definitely for Gambian youth. We all know the desperation of Gambian youth. They want to get out of that country and go anywhere they can, find something to do. But honestly, it's not an ideal situation for both for Gambians, whether they are going to Saudi Arabia or going to Spain. Of course, we cannot stop migration. If we can be able to regulate it as they are trying to do in this case, probably it's a bit welcome. But whatever the case, it is definitely not an ideal situation as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. Now, Ambassador C, taking on what DA Jawo said regarding the issue of expectation, only to go and then your expectations are dashed, your hopes are dashed. But here, like DA said, the reality here is that the youth, this is a global village. What happens in America here, by the time the news breaks out, somebody in my village, native village, is already informed about it. So it is not hidden to them. Most of them comment, they know why they are coming. Like they said, the reality is, I mean, some of them comment, harbor this ambition of, you know what, I'm going to look the other way. So what is your take here? Who benefits here? Is it the government in the bilateral agreement that after all we are providing opportunities to youth to travel, and work and then come back? But those youths also harbor this ambition of trying to say, you know what, I know what that country is, but I know what I want.
Yes. Thank you, Ibrahima. Well, you mentioned a word here that is important as far as relations, bilateral. Bilateral relations is the main highway. Now, the vehicles that are running on that highway are the components of the different agreements that happen, whether it is about employment, whether it is about scholarships, whether it's about agriculture. Those are the vehicles now running on the highway of bilateral relations. Okay, and thank you for bringing that word here. So there are two case studies, like Honorable said, Spain, Saudi. But it could be, in fact, a tri-legged case study. Gambia, Spain, Saudi. The originator is Gambia. And the demand is coming from Spain and Saudi. But if you take the Spain's case, what triggered it is that they have realized so many people are taking the boats. Their governments are saying now, we can't stop it by using our navy or anything, and then it's humanitarian, maybe for us not to just sit and say anybody who comes here will send you back, and then the boats continue coming, people are drowning in the sea and all that. So they think that, okay, if we create opportunities for these people when they come here to work, it will be a legal way to follow to come to Spain. But what Honorable said is true. Some of our people also, like they say in Wolof, if you say this, you say the other thing too. Because some people, when they go there, their intention is not to just remain workers. They may want to find their way, which is going to destroy the chances of others. It's not a good way to do things. And Spain has a better chance of not allowing you to be treated because they have the ILO is respected there. There are human rights lawyers and all this stuff. And then, it's not like when you go to countries in the Middle East, be it Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi, or anywhere. The legal system in Spain and these countries is completely different. In the first place, Spain, they have a prime minister, an elected government. It's not a kingdom. It's not an emir. Okay? So they are accountable in one way or the other. There is nothing like might versus right. It is right containing might. Okay? But in other countries, though, it's might containing right. So it will be very difficult for you to fight your case. Because, for example, in Spain, if anybody reports a person who has hired people from the Gambia in their farm, maltreated them to a certain point, it may lead to that particular farmer or that particular industry being sued, and it could be a compensation. But I have had cases directly from ladies who used to be in Kuwait. By that time, this new government was not in place. Because sometimes when you're on the media, people will come to you. I used to speak to some of them on the ground. Some people will come to you and tell you that I am suffering. Help me out. I am suffering. Okay? You will work to help them out and then want to remove them from there. The next thing is, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. C, I wanted you. Some of them, we used to give them numbers of people at the embassy. Okay? When they call the people at the embassy, those people would not even want to get involved because they also are fearing that, or they fear that, that if I get involved, your boss could be a powerful person. I could be declared persona non grata. And not everybody sacrifices their job for the common good. Some people, if it threatens their job, even if there are 10,000 Gambians dying, they would not care. They want to maintain their job. Okay? That's the problem with the countries in the Middle East. But what my advice before I hand over for you to proceed with, Honorable, to the Gambian youth is that security or society is like a weather. Right now, I would not advise anybody to try the back way. Things have changed. In fact, there is like a wilderness stirred by the anguish of lions now and dinosaurs. Because look, Mali, Burkina, the alliance of Sahel states, then the route to Agadez through Niger, in fact, is worse now. Is worse. So
Okay.
we have all seen people from certain countries, as big as China, as big as other countries, they instantly found themselves recruited to fight in the war front in Ukraine. We have heard the story of the Senegalese who died. So
Okay.
where is the possibility for Gambian youth to escape that? They could be used, they could be captured, because these are, war zones now. There is no law per se, because, Honorable has been in that place. He worked with IOM. He's been in Dakar. He knows these things. So these people, when you are crossing a zone, let's say Mali is fighting, not fighting directly, but the tension between Mali and Algeria. A Gambian crossing from Mali, say you are going to search for greener pastures, the Algerian soldiers would not know whether you are a Gambian or a Malian because we all look alike. So these are the things we need to educate our people on, particularly the youth. Let them think twice before they take the back way.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Ambassador C. That actually prompted me to ask DA to talk about the media coverage. I've seen several times on Al Jazeera, the Tunisia-Libya border, the Algeria, those Maghreb, countries. A lot of youths, in fact, sometimes when they give chance actuality to some of them, from the accent, you will know that they are from the Gambia. But because the media, when you are covering, sometimes, you want to protect these individuals, you just say they are African migrants. But, to the listener or the viewer, they will really understand the part of region that these people are from their accent. So talking about the risk factor there, a lot of youth from Africa are really desperate to move by all means necessary or by all means available. What do you think is the way forward before we move onto our topic, which Mr. Ambassador C partially dealt into, that is the Sahel region, how volatile it is? DA.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim. I entirely agree with Ambassador C here that the back way is definitely very suicidal. It is, nobody should, I don't know what kind of desperation would drive our youths to get into this, because virtually on a daily basis, you're hearing reports of people, dying in the Mediterranean. And, in fact, probably the Mediterranean here is the focus, but those who are dying in the desert, from thirst, from hunger, from all other kinds of things, I think there are even more than those who are dying in the Mediterranean. But because the Mediterranean is, is nearer to Europe, it's Europeans who are actually involved in searching and trying to rescue those people. That's where, the media would be, focused on. They would definitely report more about what's happening on the Mediterranean. But in the Sahara Desert, nobody is there to record what is going on there. But I can assure you the worst things are happening in the Sahara Desert, because those who are crossing, Niger from Mali to Burkina Faso to Niger, Agadez, before you reach the Libya or Algeria or Morocco or wherever, thousands of youths have perished in that area, and nobody's reporting it because nobody is there to report it. That's the unfortunate part of it. I think whatever needs to be done, definitely, the back way, whatever happens should be, should be discouraged. People should do whatever it takes to stop people going through the back way. Again, with the existence of the SAEs, the Sahelian States, the situation definitely is a bit different from what it used to be, because then we had ECOWAS, free movement of people. But here now we have these three countries where a majority of these people who actually go through the back way, pass through, are no longer part of ECOWAS. So, the situation definitely has changed because there cannot be that, unrestricted movement of people, from other ECOWAS countries to those areas that have already left ECOWAS. So that's, going to be a bit more difficult. And again, the tension between Mali and Algeria, and as well, not only Mali, but the other states as well, that is Niger and Burkina Faso, because they are in solidarity with Mali. In fact, I understand they have even recalled their ambassadors from Algeria. So, that tension also, like Ambassador Sia said, the Algerians will not be able to find out, asking a sub-Saharan African, are you from Mali or are you from this and that and that? As far as they are concerned, all sub-Saharan Africans who cross the border from Mali, they treat them as Malians, and they could be very hostile to them. So these are all situations that made the situation more volatile for people who are attempting to go through the back way. So it's suicidal, definitely, and nobody. But unfortunately, at home, we all know that sometimes the parents actually contribute towards, their youth, their offspring going, to the back way, because we all know what is happening in the Gambia. The parents will tell, their children, you are useless, look at our neighbor's child went and he has already taken the mother to Mecca and built a house on her own. So, you are in such a situation that you are compelled, even if you, don't intend to, but you are compelled by circumstances to try and find your way out of the country. So unfortunately, that is what's happening. Sometimes the parents are involved in this kind of situation, and we all know that there are also, traffickers who are going within the community trying to convince people, to let their offspring go. That is happening as well. So it's an unfortunate situation, but I don't know. But something definitely needs to be done to discourage this kind of situation.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, D.A. Jawo. We now move to our second topic before we wrap up this program, which is talking about volatility, which D.A. spoke about. There is no region that is more volatile than the Sahel as of now. It is like everyone around that region is on their triggers, literally, with their guns and waiting, because the Sahel states have already been created. A complete departure from ECOWAS, the convention, where we've seen ECOWAS covering West Africa, but instead West Africa is now crumbling, where you have Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, forming their own political alliance. Some thought it was a joke, but now the way it is going is really threatening the existence of ECOWAS and also, West African peace generally. So Ambassador C, what is your take about how volatile this region is vis-a-vis the migration, vis-a-vis even the political economy, the sustainable peace that we are talking about, and even world peace, so to speak. These are military governments, so it's not easy to fight a military regime, and these people seems to be holding on to their guns.
This reminds me of when we were in Sierra Leone in '94, and an African scholar, highly respected, he's no more, Dr. David Sid Nichol. He said, I like quoting him over the years. He said, democracy means access to resources with dynamic redistributive policies. That's it. That's what he said, which is true. All these things we are talking about here, the yearnings of the youth is because they don't have access to resources. And that's the number one threat, because if survival is at stake, you don't even think of living. And there's a difference between living and surviving. So now even survival is at stake. So that means something has to be done. You are right, absolutely, and Honorable is right. Let's say, before we even talk about the instability, let's talk about the resources we have. Burkina Faso, in particular, is cited as the fourth largest gold-producing country in the world. Number four. That's what some people say. And that country is in the Sahel. And Sahel is one of the most unstable regions in the world. particularly when it comes to extremism, they call it insurgency, Islamist, or whatever, but is still unstable. The tri-border area, Mali, Chad, Niger. We have another tri-border area which is also very unstable in Latin America. So we have our own too, the tri-border area in West Africa. So you will see Mali now. If anybody wants to, if had that place been stable, West Africans would not leave to go to hustle and search for greener pastures anywhere, because we don't only have greener pastures as far as natural resources, we in fact have dark green pastures. Our pasture is dark green. It's very good. But the thing is, you know, like they say in Fula, there is a proverb in Fulani that says, "Hudo yor kono sumora hudo hecho." You know, dry grass, when it is burning near wet grass, it may also burn the wet grass along. So this one is happening in the Sahel region. With all the resources we have, one thing is chronic. It's a chronic disease in West Africa. If we don't solve it, this exodus of youths will not go. We have to stop rampant corruption, because all this is an outcome. Instability comes from corruption. Okay, frustration comes from corruption. Lack of medical, like health and effective health service come from corruption. That's where we should begin with. Now, the people who are marauding fighters, I call them the forces of chaos. That's what they want, is a fertile ground for them. Because imagine if they come in the outskirts of a certain village, and then they see a youth who is so desperate, as they call, quote unquote, to make it. Those people will never hesitate if they see somebody with a motor bicycle with a suitcase full of dollars. Some of the dollars may even be fake. They give it to you. Those people will not hesitate to sell any information to lead the forces of chaos to destroy a particular country. They will not, because they are already desperate. How do I see them? The Backway, syndrome remains, but the Backway syndrome is a twin of suicide bombers. Why is the difference? Because if you are so desperate that you want to take the back way against all odds, you don't care whether you're going to be killed through Mali, you will die through Burkina, you're going to die through Niger, I don't care, I will just go. Is that person not a twin of a suicide bomber? Because it's the same mindset. I want to die. The only difference is that those other people are dying for an ideology, and this person is dying out of frustration for economic reasons. But they are all committing suicide. But now let's look at the volatility, as you said it, in the Sahel region. Look at Burkina, with all the media that people are hearing, positive vibes here and there, but the area is not stable. There are other external forces contributing towards what makes those places unstable too. This calls for me, I believe, it calls for an emergency United Nations meeting, because there are certain countries in the West also, even if there's not state-sponsored agents, some of them are corporate-sponsored agents. They would not want to see stability in that area. Okay? And that, especially those who colonized African countries, they are even worse. Now look at it. It's like this is a curse area. Look at Sudan. When they started the war, Honorable and I were on the TV program. I remember we treated this very topic, him and I, when I was talking about, he was talking about the spillover effect of the Sudan war. Some people did not, it's far-fetched. You see, Gambia, there's a problem with us. Anything we see in another country, we think is Chuck Norris's Delta Force movie. It will never come to Gambia. No. Now look at Sudan. It's spilled over. Look at Democratic Republic of Congo today. We have had the return of the forces of chaos in northern Nigeria. So is Gambia immune? And people will tell us that the Gambia never have Nyan. Do we have more Nyan than those countries where Chad is a Muslim country? Mali is a Muslim country. In fact, it's Omar Fouti is not from Mali. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So those people have Nyan. But the issue is like prayer. The issue is we have to address the causes instead of continuing to beat the effects. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, talking about the forces of chaos in the Sahel, it brings to mind DA. As a veteran journalist and also somebody who understand a lot about global affairs or global matters or international issues. I've been following the debate about the Sahel countries, the fact that a lot of them has been celebrated as champions, Pan-Africanists. But some people who are very critical minded say, well, how can you drive when you say you are fighting against the West, then you drive the French or you drive the Americans or you drive the British and then you invite the Russians. So where is the Pan-Africanism here? Because no matter, it's like two sides of a coin. It depends on which side you flip and which side you want to go with. It's debatable. Are Russians better in terms of managing, or the Chinese better in terms of inviting them and then driving the Americans or driving the French or driving the British?
Yeah, okay, thank you. I agree with Ambassador C here. I mean, some of the issues we are dealing with in the Sahel, the instability and the insecurity within the Sahel definitely has got some foreign influence as well, because we've seen what the horrible things going on in places like Burkina Faso, for instance. Some areas in Burkina Faso are no-go areas for the government. The Islamists have virtually taken over those places. Unfortunately, it is our own people, the Fulani, who are involved here again. Most of the Islamists in Burkina Faso, in Niger, and in the Mali, that area, unfortunately, Ahmad Basir saw the last time, and everybody was on him. But that is an unfortunate situation. But I mean, but who is arming them? We all know that they've got very sophisticated weapons. They are using them against the government, and they are certain areas of those three countries. I mean, that triangle there, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, that area there. In fact, it has even begun to affect certain countries. Northern Benin, Northern Togo, and Northern Ghana are
Nigeria.
also being threatened by those Islamists as well. So somebody definitely is supplying them the weapons, because they don't have the means to be getting all those ways. Somebody is interfering with what's on here. So I think, why is that those maybe three countries are trying to get the Russians to help them? Probably is part of desperation. They know that somebody within the Western bloc is maybe interfering in what's going on there, with the objective of destabilizing the region. And probably the reason for bringing the Russian is also out of desperation. But I agree that is not the answer. If we African people, can be able to, solve our own problems without involving outside, that would be the most ideal way to go about it. But with desperation, definitely you can be compelled to go to people, look for people who can be able to help you to have, solve your problem somehow. But that is not the ideal situation. Definitely, Africans should be able to, deal with our own problems if we can.
Okay. Ambassador C, this is an area you are so comfortable to talk about because prior to Global Affairs launch, you and I talked about ECOWAS in detail. And then, well, you cannot talk about volatility here or the Sahel region without talking about ECOWAS, because after all, the Sahel, there is no other region known as the Sahel region now that is outside West Africa. And ECOWAS covers, of course, West Africa. There was a time ECOWAS threatened to intervene in Niger, and then emboldened by their decision to stand shoulder to shoulder and to hold onto their guns and or stick to their guns, Burkina Mali said, okay, go ahead. If you do that, we are going to intervene militarily. And ECOWAS really had to retreat, Well, I don't know whether they surrendered. They said the option of military intervention was still not out of the table. But I think now it's more than a year. That is obviously now out of because it's only a suicide someone who is ready to engage in a suicide mission who will intervene and fight 2-3 military might, supported by Russia. So now, if you look at the dynamics in the Sahel state, you have Nigeria to deal with their own Boko Haram. This has been something that has been going on since 2015 or 2014. I stand to be corrected. and the northern Nigeria is still volatile. Of course, you still have the spillover effect. So, in a nutshell, what is your take about the implications of these Sahel states? Because not only are they politically, unstable, but also security-wise, Burkina has had successive military governments. Each of them will come and say, okay, we've come to drive, we've come to drive the insurgents or the jihadists, only to be, overthrown, a counter coup by another military government. So far, Captain Traore has survived, but that doesn't mean he has no challenges going through. So, what is your take generally about the implications for other regions in West Africa?
Thank you, Ibrahim. I will just use the springboard that Honorable left, where it is the influence of external forces. You see, there was a time I was analyzing. He asked a question which is very important. He said, "Who is arming them?" You see, going back, we have to go back to history. I know you're a history student. 1989, I think, is when the wall, Reagan and the Gorbachev tear this wall down. East Berlin, West Berlin. I'm coming to some, just wait. I'm coming to, then the disintegration of USSR, the Balkan states. Okay, now after that, after a while, some of those states want to be members of NATO. And if you are to be a member of NATO, there is a set criteria. And that set criteria is that you have to get the latest sophisticated arms to be inspected so that you are part of NATO. That's why on this point, I salute President Trump for saying what he said to NATO. But NATO also is another body that protects Europe. But the moment they are consolidated and solidified and empowered, it may not be good for West Africa too. Because we have seen the story of France. When De Gaulle came to us, recruited our people, take them to Indochina to fight. After they were liberated from the clutches of dictatorship of Hitler, the same France did not want Algeria to be free. They did not want Guinea to be free. They did not want Senegal and other countries to be free. So it's a fact that we cannot ignore. So who is arming them? Now let's go back to what I wanted to say about the Balkan states. If you are to join NATO, you have to have sophisticated arms. Now, the ones you had, there are particular countries in Eastern Europe. I was in France. I served in those. There are some countries you look at, half a mile of a hangar, of a store, is only the grenades, launchers, and all AK-47s. Those things, for us, Gambia, for Senegal and other places, may be good arms. For them who are to join NATO, the standard of arms they require for you to be a NATO member, those arms they have in store are not good. You know what they call them? Depressed arms. The depressed arms are what some of their agents, who may be indirectly connected to certain governments, will take and resell. This is what brought the gun runners that were being followed. You remember the Millennium airline that was put on the UN ban and all that stuff.
And Victor
These
Bush.
are the kind of arms. Okay? This is exactly what Honorable was asking. This is how they are armed. Because the depressed goods of the arms, they have agents who will resell them. People like Charles Taylor were there. Well, in the Gambia, we had what was happening, gold, diamonds, timber trade, and all this stuff. Once Africa has a lot of things in there, but some of the countries outside don't want to go through the normal channel. They want to get it through the indirect way, and that is the corporate world. This is how, and our people should be very careful of one thing. You mentioned our ethnic group, the Fulani. You see, they are already hooked up with that bait, because the people who sell arms, particularly the big industries, the big war arsenals in Sofia, Bulgaria, and other places, they are after three things: political tension, ethnic tensions, and religious tensions, and then the fourth will be warlords. Not warlords, but they could also be the drug cartel barons. They have their marketeers. These people who sell these arms, they come to West Africa, they observe, they know what is hegemony, cultural hegemony, they know what is demography, they associate all those variables and say, oh, this is a volatile area. These Fulani people do not want to be controlled, because I know that there is a very dangerous, deep-seated dark side of ethnic difference in Burkina Faso, particularly between the Mosi and the Fulani. So that's what they want. If they see that it's a possibility for them to sell their arms, and these people, it will be difficult for you to tie them to a state. Because look, we all know how intelligence operates. Sometimes somebody can be caught. You cannot. Who could have caught Victor Bout and then tell him that you work at the Kremlin? Can you? You cannot. Where is Blackwater? Blackwater. Where is these people also? The Wagner. They are still there. Most of these countries, in fact, when people go on the ground, they will rather prefer to use the mercenaries, so that there will be nothing like tying them for future international tribunals. Yeah.
Okay. So, Dia, where do we take off here as we wrap this special edition of our program, Global Matters? Where do we go from here? Like I always tell Ambassador Z, where do we go from here with regard to the volatility? We can wrap up, and also the Spanish Gambia government and Saudi bilateral agreements about labor. What is your takeoff or your take-home message, takeaway message?
Yeah, thank you, Ibrahim. But it is definitely not going to be an easy situation to get out of, because here we are dealing with very, very powerful players who are actually directly interfering with what is happening in the region, and we being very volatile states, not powerful, economically very weak, and other things. So we are at the mercy of these big players, and it's not an easy situation to get out of. But I think we as Africans, and the African Union has a role to play here. ECOWAS has a role to play, and all the other regional, organizations also have a role to play. We need to support each other. We need to have that the backs of our minds that we have a role to protect our continent, our way of life, and everything else, and not allow outsiders to interfere to such an extent that they would be able to disintegrate us and make us so vulnerable. We are already vulnerable, but we need to definitely do quite a lot of soul searching to see how best we can be able to protect our own interests. But unfortunately, there are people within the sub-region who are willing to go with anybody, as long as they're going to serve their personal interests. And that is what we Africans need to avoid: the personal interest, the interest of the state of Africa and our different states should definitely be take precedence over our personal interests. Unfortunately, that is not the situation, because you are dealing with very poor people. Poverty here, Africa is potentially, we are the richest continent, but Africans are among the poorest in the world, which is also another thing that we definitely need to revisit and see what is causing all these things. So all these things are issues that we need to tackle, and unless we tackle them to our advantage, we'll continue to be in this kind of a volatile situation.
Thank you so much, DA. Ambassador C, you have the last word. And in the last word, you have the chance to also talk about the current issues that are unfolding in the Sahel. The good take-home message here from what is happening in the Sahel is that there seems to be a resurgence of the leftover of the Nkrumahs, the Thomas Sankara. The fact that there is this resistance movement that the Sahel, leaders are as of now, they are trying to reassert the African pan-Africanism, pan-African dream, the fight, for against colonial domination, vis-a-vis three West African countries. So far, there is a fear that there could be spillover effect. What is your take-home message?
Thank you, Rima. Well, for me, Pan-Africanism is not a club. It's not an identity like some people who put on uniform, or you shouldn't have a beret, or you have some kind of beard like mine up here, like a Che Guevara around. No, that's not what it is. Pan-Africanism is discipline. Pan-Africanism is dignity with identity in that dignity. It is a soul, it is a spirit. You have to live it, whether you announce it or not. But you see that some people will deliver speeches all over the world, talking about Africa, doing this, doing that, everything. But, you know, I think the answer to this is not buying more arms. The moment we understand the basics that we need to do to stabilize these countries, and then we assert ourselves as a breadbasket, instability will go. There are big countries who fight in other parts of the world. You know what they end up doing? They will go to those villages and then dig wells for them. In fact, it will bring me back to the Gambia. That is why I respect a lot the Ghanaian contingent. Those people know what modern military asks and what it is supposed to do. Because warfare is made in the mind, and it is only in the mind that you can erase it. The moment you have people, they have access to resources, the governments in our place, as I said earlier, they should be very careful of letting loose corrupt practices. Because the moment we can bring this together, you have industries, for example. Let's say, I'll give you an example. We invite Bangladesh, just an example I'm saying. You have 1, 2, 3 industry, one in Yoruba-Kunda, the other one in Fulabantang, your area, okay? You have a fruit making, industry there. These people will never travel. It's not about soldiers running the length and breadth of the country. No, don't be corrupt. And also, there are things that I want to make mention here. People will always think that development means to construct roads and bridges. Roads and bridges are good, but I think the priority in our area, okay, after you have just got at least to a certain extent, the priority is electricity. The priority is water supply. The priority is agriculture. The priority is health. If you can, guarantee people that these things will not go 100%, nobody is asking anyone to, these are the basics. This is what changes a country. America, before the roads were spoken about, I think Newton and others who discovered electricity or whatever, I think the time they were doing it, they did not talk about roads. Electricity comes because the drilling machine that you use on the road, the supply is coming from power. Let's work hard to have electricity supply 24/7. Work hard to make sure that the agriculture booms, a lot of food. You see, this is what will make the kids stay. Because, for example, today, if I'm giving a project or you are giving a project to promote agribusiness, and then you go to your village, you have 10 hectares of corn that you put there. Okay? The buyer's market there, the seller's market is there. At the end of the year, these people are going to pick bananas in other countries. They'll pick it for you. People will tell you, oh, they are paying you more. But $200 in Saudi Arabia, for example, as I heard people say, I don't know exactly whether it's true or not. If you are given $200 in Saudi or in America, the index of living, $200, the value of it in those countries is even about what $50 is can buy you in Gambia. It is not money. But if you are in the Gambia, you go to the corn farm or to the banana farm, you go home every day with $500, you will live a better life than the person who is in Saudi, because $500 is a day. I'm not a good mathematician, but I think by the end of the month, you are going to earn 15 to 20,000. Do permanent secretaries earn that? I doubt it. Or some directors, they don't. So let's let the industry sprout. Let the job opportunities sprout. Some people will tell you, oh, some of you are saying this thing. What are you doing? Yes, I'm doing something. Yes, some of us have done something. It's on the ground there, at least. Others and others. DA is doing something, and I know about it. You most likely, because what we are doing right now, if you were to start, and then in fact you discuss it with me so that we start having correspondence on the ground. We are not going to have correspondents who are going to be politically only going to film and tell you, oh, I saw Barrow here. No, that's not what we are interested. Whether it is good for Barrow or bad for Barrow, what we want is we want you to promote agriculture. I mean, say things that will also show people that we need to have, well, let's have the reliable electricity supply, a reliable water supply, a good health, health service, I would say healthcare delivery or whatever they call it, and this thing, agriculture. The moment we have that, Ibrahim, electricity, water supply, agriculture, health, many people will not leave the Gambia because the health industry is a big employer. And then we expand, support the police, support the army with machines that they can go to the farm. Then you will see the recruitment will increase because the army will not depend on the government to be paying those recruits, because you will be told that you are on training for 2 years. What you will earn will come from your garden and your farm. That's it. That's all I have to say today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Essa Bokar Sey, and then veteran journalist and former information minister, Demba Ali Jawo, for this episode of our Global Matters. Join us next week for another edition of our program. I'm Ibrahim Abale. Bye for now.